Are you protecting yourself or are you punishing yourself? Welcome to the Modern Sage Podcast. It's Leah, and I'm really happy to be here with you today. You know, I was thinking recently as I've been writing a lot more and preparing for this retreat that I'm leading this spring about how we claim that we need and want all these things for our growth and to change and to fix ourselves and all these things to work on. And I understand those things are true. I understand that more than anyone. I have the sensations within myself, and I've been working with people for a very long time. But what I think is really going on, if we could just distill it down to a simple phrase, is that we want to free ourselves. We want to feel free in our soul. We want to feel free in our daily lives. We want to feel alive. And that freedom is what each of us are seeking. So today, I just want us to consider the ways that we have learned to protect ourselves, which are actually punishing ourselves, and how that has served its purpose, and how maybe we can put that behavioral pattern away. As you probably are well aware, if you've been following me or listening to this podcast for a while or read my books, when we have trauma, when we have any kind of emotional wounding or overwhelm, when we come from a lineage of people who have unprocessed, unhealed trauma themselves and not so healthy behavioral patterns, it is very easy for us to take those on. It's very easy for us to get stuck in the addiction to the core wound itself, the frequency, the feeling state, the imprint that it has on our life. And we end up staying of like mind or around people of the same cloth, such as our parents, such as friends, people in the world. And of course, we don't want to remove ourselves from these people if we can help it. But when I say we stay close to these people, I mean we emotionally stay close in the way that we continue to perpetuate the problems, the behaviors, the feeling states, the limitations from which we've come or from that we've experienced. And so we've built these mechanisms in our lives, mechanisms that seemingly protect us, that protect our heart, protect our mind, protect our physical safety. And depending on what your core wound is, depending on the traumas that you've experienced, we create these protective mechanisms to keep us safe. Because in the sense of safety, obviously, we want to feel like we have some kind of control over our lives, over our senses, over our experience. And safety is extremely important. It's one of the foundations of any relationship. The problem is that most of us don't know how to provide safety for ourselves, because we're so accustomed to being in this mode of protecting ourselves that we thereby end up punishing ourselves. And what do I mean by that? When we stay in the mindset of defensiveness, for example, which I can raise my hand to this, it's my go-to when I feel threatened, when I feel triggered, when I get scared, what have you. I get defensive. I want to protect myself and fight back. I want to try to find every which way to prove that I'm not wrong. Something's not wrong with me. It's a very, very common response or reaction, I should say, when we have either a core wound of shame or guilt, or if we are just kind of perpetually in a state of fear, anxiety, we try to defend ourselves. Now, just think for a minute about someone who's defending themselves. Maybe think of two boxers in a ring. We have the attacker who's moving towards the other, and the person defending themselves, they have their hands up in front of them and trying to stop the attack. That energy it's not the same as pushing, but energetically, if we looked at it, it is similar to pushing. It's keeping something out, it's keeping away. So we've talked a lot about healthy boundaries. I do, and almost every self-help guru in the world talks about healthy boundaries. Healthy boundaries are different than protective walls. And what I'm displaying here, what I'm using as an example of defending oneself, that would be like a wall, putting a wall up. Now, of course, if you're in physical danger, we want to protect ourselves that way. If you're in verbal danger, emotional danger, any kind of danger, our first response should be to make sure we are safe and protected. But that's different than walking around with walls in front of us all the time. Now we're getting into self-punishment. We're getting into living a limited life for the sake of the other. Even though we're not being martyrs for the sake of the other, it's kind of the same because we're allowing other people, we're giving up ourselves to allow other people to behave and do how they want towards us or towards others. We don't want to rock the boat. We walk on eggshells. We defend ourselves. And all of a sudden, we're in a little cage. We're not free. I think it is always healthiest and best to work towards remaining in relationship with the people that we love and that our family unit, our friends, the people that we have built something with, if possible. It's not always possible. But what I often see with clients is that they are so busy protecting themselves, so busy defending themselves, so busy looking at the other and all of the things that are wrong with their mom or their dad or their sister or their brother or whomever, that there is a wall between them and the love that they have for their family member. All that means is that there's unhealed wounds at the core. There's unhealed wounds in place here, which is a wonderful thing to know because we can work with that. We can put our attention on resolving and healing that. But if we're not aware of that, then we just continue blaming. We just stay in fear. We just continue defending ourselves and thereby keep punishing ourselves. If you think of a prison or a cage and a little bird that's in that cage, there's these memes and quotes about the bird could have flown free because the cage door was actually open, but he's so busy looking out the rest of the cage he didn't know the door was open. That kind of thing. That's akin to how many of us live our lives. We are in a cage. And this is when we feel stuck, when we feel hopeless, when we feel like a victim, when we feel limited, when we feel unsupported, when we feel afraid, when we feel codependent, when we feel narcissistic. We're in a cage. We have unhealed wounds that have not been processed. We have history of our subconscious mind that is informing our present moment mind, and it keeps us in a protective mode that is really just covering for a punishment mode. We don't live in cages in our lives. If you are like me, I don't even like to go to the zoo anymore. I can't tolerate to see those animals stuck in those cages. I guess there's worse things that could be happening to them, but still, it's not their natural state. And it's not our natural state. We want to be free. We are here to be free. And the place that freedom happens is in the heart. And if you are not feeling free, we turn our attention, one, to the wounds that need processing and healed, and two, to the heart space. With a closed heart, we are in protective mode. We are trying to control and monitor what goes in, what goes out, who's allowed, who's not. Is this safe? Am I not? What can I do? What shouldn't I do? What have I overdone? It's all about monitoring from this place. And when we're monitoring like that, can you imagine being under a microscope, maybe you have been, of a person or a group of people looking at you with that kind of intensity? The amount of energy that you spend monitoring, protecting the heart, you would feel completely overwhelmed, completely analyzed, right? If people were looking at every single move that you made and monitoring just fractions of energy exchanges with others so that you feel safe. That's the kind of monitoring that's happening, the kind of criticism, the kind of punishment we're putting ourselves under when we are monitoring ourselves that way. We are keeping ourselves in our own cage. Freedom, the kind of freedom that I think we're yearning for, especially in this day and age where everything feels so tight, feels so constricted, feels so angsty, feels out of control in a certain way and overly controlled in other ways. This freedom is the kind of love and safety that is not dependent on someone else's actions. It's a kind of love and safety that is beyond the limited definition that we've given these words here as humans. Agape love, the higher spiritual love, it kind of gets to the point there. But even beyond that, the freedom that we're seeking is a freedom of not only being uncaged, but being free to fly, being free to exhibit our true authenticity, being free to speak for oneself, being free to allow other people to make their choices and speak for themselves, being free to accept the flow of nature and life just as it is without trying to somehow personalize it or make it only go in our favor so that we don't experience the thing that we don't want to experience. A lot of people say to me or ask me, how am I so strong? Or, you know, you're doing great, or you have it all together. And to be honest with you, yes, I am a strong person. And I struggle a lot. I struggle. I struggle with the things I've always struggled with. Not so much the anxiety anymore, or, you know, these desperate feelings or low self-worth in the same way. But certainly there's moments of self-doubt, there's confusion, there's feeling small, there's loneliness, there's all kinds of things that go on in my struggle, as I know goes on in your struggle and for most all of us. But the one thing that I feel confident in is that the ability that I have fostered to manage emotional pain and discomfort, and that ability to manage emotional pain, discomfort is not a protective prison that is punishing myself. It is a way to be free in the midst of life while enduring the discomforts and pain, because I have a smile on my face, because I show up to see clients, because I do whatever I do and do it as well as I can and continue moving forward, doesn't mean that I don't suffer or that I don't like some of the choices other people have made that I care deeply about. It's that I'm moving through those things, managing emotional pain and discomfort. And as long as we're trying to avoid that, we will continue this cycle of protective, defensive behavior that keeps us imprisoned in our own cage and keeps us stuck, keeps us punishing ourselves. Now, when I talk about punishing ourselves, obviously, most of us don't have the experience of actually hurting ourselves. However, some people do. And that's a whole other conversation. But in likeness, the experience of harming oneself physically and perpetuating belief cycles and emotional attachments, emotional addictions, and thoughts that are negative, harmful, hurtful, even perpetuating behaviors or lack of behaviors, it is similar to physical hurting self, but it's happening at an emotional and an energetic level. And when we're doing that, it's often a pretty good sign that we still need some attention to learn how to endure and move through, accept emotional pain and discomfort. I don't think that this life is one just of suffering. I do not. However, I do know that there's much suffering, and as long as we're avoiding that, we're not living fully. When I think about physical pain, I know many people, many of my clients have physical pain. And now at this stage of my life, I have more physical pain than I've ever had before. Of course, we have a new relationship to people and compassion for others, empathy, understanding when we endure the very thing that people have been struggling with. And so I have that now for my clients. And also the challenge of this enduring emotional pain and discomfort in line with the physical pain and discomfort. It's quite a task, but it is one that I find has become one of my strongest spiritual practices. How do I care for myself in this space? How is it bringing me more compassion and empathy? How am I moving toward a growth and awakening in the same breath as I'm struggling to take a step down the step because of the cartilage in my knee? How is all of this happening in congruency for my expansion and growth versus the victim mentality of why is this happening to me? When we learn to embrace and endure pain and discomfort, there is such expansion there for us. And I know that many of us want to avoid that as much as possible because it doesn't feel good. But as long as we're trying to not feel pain, we're protecting and imprisoning ourselves in this way of imprisonment that keeps us trapped and punishes ourselves. So, in a certain way, we're receiving the same lesson But the punishing of self is actually directed at us in a negative way, where the learning to endure the pain, the suffering, or i.e., punishment, if you want to call it that, it brings us out the other side with that expansion, enlightenment, a sense of capacity. And when we are in that space, we can open our heart. This heart opening business is vital to our health, to our relationships, and in my opinion, to our whole existence here as human beings. Right now, the energy that's happening on this planet, the chaos, it feels like chaos, and it's exciting at the same time. It's like this kind of mad artistry with amazingly beautiful things happening and devastatingly impactful things happening. And a lot of people are scared and a lot of hearts are closing. I want to invite us during this time that this is the time for us to learn how to have a greater capacity to endure and embrace pain and discomfort so that we can stop punishing ourselves and we can open our heart and be with others. The vulnerability and intimacy it is to open our heart. It's not just for intimate relationships. It's to neighbor, it's to parent, it's to friendship, it's to collaboration, it's to community, it's to neighborhoods and townships, it's to union. And the energy right now is about union. How can we stay united from a heart space to create a new future? And when we're talking in that language and thinking about generations to come, thinking about the planet, thinking about the collective consciousness, thinking about how we want and are experiencing life on this planet, this also applies to ourselves. This is the daily practice to put the wall down, to attend to any parts of ourselves that still need maybe some really deep attention, the old traumas, wounds, patterns that need us to give it that attention so that we can lay it down, so that we can be present here fully, hearts open, moving forward, uniting with self, uniting with God, uniting with one another in a way that we have never experienced. And if this only happens in your life, in the immediate environment of your world, maybe in your friends or with your lover or with your parents, what a blessing. What an energetic impact that has on everyone. What a contribution. That is enough. And so, in this invitation for us to open our hearts, we may first need to do some work, and maybe we're almost clear of that. Maybe there's a lot still to do. Don't be overwhelmed by it, because this life is for both. It is for continual work on self and also the expansion and the movement forward, the evolution. And it's all on time. But we do it with the intention of reducing self punishment, self harm, physical, emotional, mental, or energetic, so that we can get out of protective mode and into unity mode, into heart mode, into relationships that serve ourselves and serve the world. A few podcasts back, I did an episode on anxious love. And this is kind of the continuation of that message. So if you haven't heard that, I invite you to go listen to that, or maybe listen to it again. It's kind of a personal story. But if you are here, I trust that this message is for you. I won't get into astrology. I won't get into energy dynamics, into the quantum and so forth. We can, and maybe I will soon. But for right now, I hope that you can trust that this message of heart expansion is where we are all going this year, in the coming years. And I know it doesn't seem like that, because we are up against an equal energy right now, an energy that is necessary to help us move into this expansion, to move into our higher senses, to move into a state of awareness and intuition and love that we have never experienced before as beings. And so this is our work. If you want to work with me, and if you hear this before the 1st of May, 2025, I invite you to a weekend that I'm leading in Cape Cod called Free Your Soul. And this is the work that we're working on. We're working on rewriting our narratives, looking at our past stories, looking at our subconscious, doing soul retrieval work, clearing our timelines, a bunch of juicy, deep stuff for our healing journey. And I'd love for you to join me there. The information is on my website. You can find it on social media, and it'll be just a magical time, especially after this kind of heavy and long winter, both in nature and in the world. It would be a perfect time to join together and practice this very practice. All right. Love you guys. Don't forget, follow me on social media at Leah the Modern Sage, and I will see you real soon.